to where they will want to come. Because like you said, it is
Well,
boring,
you run out
right?
of things to talk about. What are we going to do? Come in here every week and talk about believing in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord?
Right.
Is that what we're going to talk about every Sunday?
Yeah, that's a good
Because
point.
this is boring. And, we need to raise some money here. And then the church becomes this organization that can't survive off of just the simple truth of the gospel. It has to have
So do you agree it's a
millions
business?
of
Do you think the church
alternative
is a business?
voices. Huh?
Do you think 1122 is a business?
Well, I mean, come on. Every church is a business when you get down to it.
Angels and demons fighting in the deep end. I turn all my weakness into something I believe in. Every scar, every doubt, that's fuel when I speak. Welcome to the battle where the broken get free. Yeah.
Welcome to Angels and Demons Podcast. Our guest today is Brian Linton, CEO of TRC. Brian,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on this podcast. Brian, has been around the family for a long time. How do they say it in the Western time? A long time.
It's been a while.
But we, our families have really good chemistry because we're real people, and we just try to be authentic and as real as possible. And seeing this podcast is on mental health, I thought, man, we're missing a big piece of your real people. And so I thought, what an honor to have you on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Brian, you are running a company, or do you own a company called TRC?
I'm an owner in it, and there's partners in that business. It's really like a family business. It's been around for about 40 years. My dad and his brother and another family friend of ours started that. They worked at Occidental. They were just welders. And then a little old tiny, back then we called it a junkyard. It's not a scrap yard, that's kind of, and
I like the word junkyard.
they all,
Kinda makes me
they
feel
kind of
good.
scratched their money together, borrowed some money, and went and bought a little tiny, junkyard. It was called Weathersby Iron and Metal. That was the name of it. And
Where's this located?
it's out in Live Oak, Florida.
Okay.
Yep, it was in Live Oak. It's in Live Oak. It's still there. And they all were welders, and my dad always wanted to quit the job because, he worked in a very union-like environment, and it was it was a union. It was like PCS Occidental, back then it was called Occidental. And the thing he didn't like about the unions was that in a union, if you're doing, like, say you're really good at welding, well, they get a job that comes up and they need a welder. Well, they can't just call you up and you get to make all that money. They have to call everybody who's in line in front of you, and if they can't do the job, then they just get to go sit in a room and watch TV, and then at the same time they're getting paid the same thing you're getting paid, and they're down there watching TV and you're up there working. So he just didn't really like that setup, and he wanted to get out of it, and he saw the opportunity to buy this junkyard, and so they all kind of put their money together, bought that junkyard. And I think the better part of my childhood was spent him halfway working there, and then my dad would work crazy hours till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, because he would get off work and then have to go to the junkyard and try to make
we
that
had
work.
to postpone the podcast. We typically do it on Fridays, but we had to do it on Saturdays because Brian, he has to work on Fridays.
We got to work.
He has to work. So no wonder that work ethic comes from your father. That's quite a gift, to have that. 'Cause
Yeah,
a lot
it really
of people
was.
don't have that type of work ethic.
Well, I hated it growing up.
You didn't like it?
Well, everybody else is going to the river and you're going to work.
That's a good point. There's a lot of springs out
and
that
you
way.
felt like
Yeah.
always felt like everybody else was having fun.
Black
Even though I
Creek.
did have a lot of fun. We were out in Live Oak, so we weren't near we were near the Swanee River. I grew up on the Swanee River.
That's a beautiful river.
Yeah, it can be.
So that's kind of how you fell into TRC, is because your family, it's generational. They bought the recycling center, or they at the time called it a junkyard. But really, you what role do you play? You said you're the CEO?
Yeah, I am now. And it's kind of these titles, they're like people like to go, ooh, that's an important title.
It is.
Somebody's got to play the role, but like
You're very humble.
I just put worker on my title at work. We're just here to work. We're not here to be Mr. Important or nothing like that. It's like that's kind of been instilled growing up. My dad always kind of drove an old truck. He didn't really need all the attention, and that's kind of the background that I come from. It's like, don't get on a podcast and start talking about things. You know what I mean?
Oh man!
It's like, keep a low profile.
Is he still alive, your father?
Oh yeah, he still works with me. We talk every morning.
Oh cool! So he's gonna be able to listen to this. This is fun.
If he can figure out how to download it.
I'll help him. I'll help him with that. That's really cool to know that you have that much respect for your father, though, that you value the things that he values. I find that there's great reward. The one commandment in the Bible that comes with a promise is honor your father and your mother, and your days will be long. And it sounds like you've done nothing but honor your father.
I can't say that. I mean, I definitely had some teenage years, some rough years, and we came from a small town. There really wasn't a whole lot to do around there, and we got into a little bit of trouble here and there. Not too terribly bad, nothing legal or anything, but my dad kind of used work to that's what he kind of did to try to drive that, to get me to a point where I wanted to do something better. Is like, he just put me out there and worked me, and then I went from crushing cars to cutting scrap to getting in the semi. And when I was 18, I had my CDL license. I was hauling 3 or 4 loads to the mill. Like, I hauled the steel to the mill. I did all that.
So explain to me a little bit how this works. Because I mean, for me, if I don't understand, I would assume a lot of listeners don't understand either. So TRC is a recycling center. It buys scrap metal, provides waste removal services for contractors, businesses, for the public. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So copper, aluminum, steel, stainless steel, electric motors, and appliances. So you would make money based on people. You drop off containers at construction sites, then the metal would go into the containers, and then they would drop it off at your recycling center?
Yeah, pretty much anything that you see out there in the public that's metal all ends up at some scrapyard somewhere, and it all gets melted back down and turned back into pretty much other products. And so we're kind of like in the middle of that. We're like a little hub. And
in the middle, meaning like, are you on the larger or smaller scale of recycling in Jacksonville?
Well, in Jacksonville, I'd probably say we're not like a multinational business, but we have 6 locations, and I would say, as far as size wise goes, as scrapyards, we're kind of like a medium size operation. Small being like people that have 1 location, and most of it's measured in tons anyway.
So who would be bigger than you?
CMC, Trademark, large corporations that have.
But for Jacksonville, for a family-sized business, you'd probably be the biggest.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we're up there in size.
Okay.
I don't want to say I'm the biggest because I'm.
So how many employees do you have?
I think we got about 50 to 55, somewhere in there.
Wow. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it is. It can be.
What is the most dangerous aspect of the job, or the most interesting aspect of the job that you really, since a childhood, you've really locked into where you're like, man, I like this. I'm proud to be the CEO of a company my dad started, and I really love this company. What would you say sticks the most there?
I think it's because it's a very consistent business. I like that part of it. We don't have we've I think in the history of that company, we've only had one time where we thought we were going to have to lay people off, and a week later we called them all back. And construction business can boom, but scrap business is kind of a real consistent business. And so
how is it consistent? Because how does somebody know where you are? So let's say there's a construction site. Do they ask for the containers? I mean, did they just look up online like, okay, I'm copper, I've got a ton of copper that, is coming out of an old industrial building, and I got to scrap this metal somewhere. So are you more of a favor to them? Do they pay you for that service?
No, we usually pay them. A lot of it comes from referral. I mean, we've been there a long time, so a lot of people know where we're
word of mouth.
Yeah, they know where we're at and everything like that. So it's not like, I mean, you know where the Walmart is, you go there.
Okay.
You don't really have to be told. It's people they find it. They need it, they find it.
Well, that's incredible that your company has that ability to where your referral system is so strong. You must provide incredible service.
I think we do pretty good.
Word of mouth, whenever I hear a business that by word of mouth is the greatest gift of referral. Where someone says, hey, listen, you got to use this company because they're just outstanding. When a company grows organically like that, to me, it speaks volumes of the people that work there. Because it doesn't grow organically well to 55 employees at a medium-sized recycling company if you're doing the wrong thing.
Well, we got a lot of good people.
That's awesome.
We got a lot of good people that work with us, and they make it happen, and
can I ask the question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just curious, how does it work? Let's say you get a container of scrap metal dropped off. How does that work? Can you walk me through how that process works?
Yeah, if you were going to tear this building down, you would call me up and say, hey, I'm going to tear this building down. I got these different grades of metal. I need to get some prices. And then I would call you back and go, for that, I'll give you 10 cents a pound. For this, I'll give you 50. For that, I'll give you, 80 cents a pound. And then you might pick up the phone and call 3 other scrap yards, and they may give you somewhere in that range, and they may be less. And where we really kind of, I think, really do well is we have some good guys that try to shoot for a 24-hour turnaround. We have really fast service. We work a lot of shutdowns, and we can kind of jump in there and get things done when a lot of other people may sort of take a little bit longer. So speed,
during a storm or something,
we're more into the speed. We try to be really fast, and that's why people like dealing with us.
Do you think because you have a smaller team, because you gave the analogy of your dad in the broader union industry with a smaller team, you're more effective at being able to keep up with that tempo?
Yeah, and your name's on the line, so our name is on the line. You do what you say you're going to do. If you tell somebody you're going to be there at 6:30 in the morning, you got to show up. And we've consistently done that. We haven't done it every single time. I mean, I'm sure we've made a million mistakes, but consistently on average, we're going to,
For how many years?
Well, the company's been around for 40 years, and I've worked there. I mean, I was in the scrapyard when I was 8 years old, running around with, friends and just playing in there.
What's the most interesting thing you have found while working at that scrapyard?
This is what is interesting. I worked at that scrapyard since I was a kid, and I was telling somebody the other day, I don't think I've taken home but maybe 5 things I've ever found in that scrapyard that have ever went to my house. It's just scrap.
I've got to know what these 5 things are.
I mean,
Ryan,
one of them when I was a kid, it was like a lawnmower I got, and then I made a racing mower out of it.
That's cool.
And I messed around with that a little bit, but I don't particularly like that.
So there's not one thing that stands out that you were like, oh my, this is incredible.
No, absolutely. Matter of fact, some guy that worked with us said, Brian's going to be good at scrap metal because he hates it so much. And I really do. I hate scrap. I hate junk. I want to get it cut up and put on a truck and sold.
Okay. And then when you say sold, it goes to a mill, and then a mill will then take care of it.
Yeah, they take care of it. Okay. I don't pilfer through cars and look through them and try to find things. I said the most interesting thing we ever found in a scrap car was I think one time we found $3,000.
In a scrap car.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was like
probably a mafia car, just
I don't know.
back in the day or something like that. Buried, and then someone's like, "Hey, I need to scrap this."
It was something like that.
That's what that's a nice surprise, right?
Well, and a lot of people spend a lot of time looking for that stuff after you find it. So. But I did have an uncle. I have an uncle that he pulled out. And you can go to his house. He has working steam engines, all these different antiques.
Cool. That's really cool.
Because he was buying it all back when it was like all the stuff you see in these antique books you got. He's got all that stuff.
That's cool. That's really cool.
And so he's kind of known around there for antiques.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I used to, one summer, in this community I grew up in, to get this trip that we wanted to take, there was this large scrap metal site that the guy didn't want anything to do with it. Sold the land. There were broken cars, broken metal, and so we gathered all the metal into these flatbeds, and we would drive it over, and they would find out how much copper, how much aluminum, and then we would take that money and we built it up for a trip. And it was kind of a cool way, to do something.
Yeah.
What's interesting is you lived obviously at the beach, and where the recycling facility is quite a ways.
Yeah, it's out in Lake City.
So from driving, and commuting, you're on a podcast. What do you like to listen? Do you like to listen to podcasts when you drive?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I listen to a lot. I think that's how we got to talking about.
Yeah. I think that and that's what's really intriguing is I find that when I found you really enjoyed podcasting or listening to podcasts, I was intrigued of which ones you really liked, why you liked them. And one of the key things you said to me when coming on is, listen, I'm not coming on a boring podcast where someone's going to listen to it and it's just going to be a bunch of just nonsense. Where someone's like 90 seconds of hot air, scrap metal it, right?
Well, and now I'm
crunch it down. Get that trash out of here, and because there's so much trash out there.
Yeah.
I was just sorting through all these podcasts, and I was listening to a bunch of them. And we'll separate Joe. We're going to specifically talk about Joe Rogan here in a moment. But there's a lot of trash out there to listen to, would you say?
I'm sure there is. I don't listen to it, but
they need a recycling center for that.
Yeah, they need to get rid of some.
Like CNN, maybe that could be recycled. Do you think broken down? Maybe all the liberalists could be maybe we could recycle them.
Well, there's still a need for all that. I mean, podcasts can't solve one problem: real-time news. They can't fix that.
No, they can't.
Yeah, because
it's broken.
It's all.
Lies.
No, what I'm saying is right now, what's happening? Well, there's no podcast you can download to find out what's happening right now. And by the time you listen to it, it's already old. So there's always going to be a need for that live news feed.
It's interesting you say that, because Joe Rogan just said, I was listening to an older podcast he did with Edward Snowden, and he was emphasizing that, everything that we have is basically a lie to us, meaning they're not giving us the clear, clean version of what's going on. We're getting an edited format of that to protect our image, as Americans.
Yeah.
And so through that, we don't really get the clarity that we once, used to, like back in the day, actually get real news. And so I think that's a big problem. And that's one thing that this podcast we want to do, is create real, authentic content that helps people with their mental health listen to it, be able to process it, and be able to feel better about their thought process. And seeing you have a commute, the average American drives, if you can believe, an hour each way to work and back. So we're trying to help provide good content that improves their mental health. And I think that, Joe Rogan has a great... What do you personally love about Joe Rogan, and what is your favorite podcast that you find really feeds you for the day?
I like PVD podcast. It'd probably be my favorite right now.
Why do you like that podcast?
I just like the way that he I like the way he breaks things down. I like the way he has a lot of different characters on that. They're funny. It's not
I do
boring.
like it. Some of them are really funny.
And I like to have 3 or 4 different people talking rather than just one. I do like Joe Rogan. It's just takes a long time to listen to it.
It really does. Like, to get through Bernie Sanders, like, I was so distracted by his hair, I could barely get through the podcast. It just seemed like he got caught in a blizzard before he walked in. His hair was just like, Bernie's hair was just all over the place, Like, I mean, it was... But in that podcast, Joe was so respectful to him, and you could tell, like, he really genuinely wanted to understand Bernie Sanders' thought process. And to take that one specific podcast for an example is Joe Rogan's ability to extract from an individual information is at an exceptional A+ ability. Would you say?
I would say so. Yeah, he's number 1.
Yeah, so he's at right now. He's technically falls under comedy, but he's at 20.6 million. The next after that drops down to 7.32 million views. So he is kind of the king of podcasting. And, a lot of that I find is because he can authentically draw out good content, And the ability to be able to do that, I think, can really help people, in their ability to be able to think clearly.
But I think the question here is, what are you going to do? How are you going to draw that out of people?
So that's a good question. I first think that the number one thing that Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn are missing is that there's so much content coming out and so much lack of brokenness in humankind. Like, a lot of it is not focused around God. A lot of it is slapstick comedy, like Adam Sandler coming on, every other word is And so, it's like, okay, like, we get it, like, here I am, whacking off, and I get it. Adam Sandler's a kid, he's been like that since he was 16, and I love the guy. I love the guy, and but authentically, for our souls to have eternal life and to live long, we have to understand that we're sinners and that we need God.
We do have to get that. We have to get that point. Yeah.
So these people are listening to someone who's a very big influencer who isn't necessarily guiding them to eternal water.
No.
It's not something I'm concerned for these 20.6 million people. And then the next 7.32 million, 4.9 million. So we're talking about 563 million people listen to podcasts every year. And religion one is the Bible in a year. His name is Mike Schmitz. Do you know Mike Schmitz?
No.
Okay, so he does Bible in a year, and he has 282,000. Nobody seems to be interested in anything biblically that has to do with the podcast. They're at the bottom.
It's boring.
It's boring?
It's boring.
Why is it?
Well, it's boring because it's, the most interesting religious podcast, I guess you could say, about God to me is Stephen Davey, Wisdom for the Heart. I would probably say that's the most interesting to me because he tells stories and ties it back to history, and he kind of has more of a Paul Harvey style type way of talking, and that's what it makes it interesting because it's paralleling history with something that's going on in the Bible. It's more of a real world. If you just take the Bible and try to read it in a year, you might, you're talking about mental health, you might go insane, just because there's so much going on in the Bible, and it'll cause you to have probably usually more questions than answers, a lot of times. But that's why, like me and you were talking the other day, and it's like, we have all these different churches and all these different sects of people, and here we have 1122, we got Beaches Chapel, we got United Methodist, we have the Vineyard, which is where I went, and that's where I met you, and you have all these different voices competing for really the exact same customer, and the only thing they really have to sell, if you get down to it, is it's about the blood and the Lord Jesus Christ and him dying on the cross and raising from the dead. If you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord, you will be saved. That's really all they got to sell. But they constantly are trying to get creative and come up with, we got to have new content. We got to keep these people interested. We got to turn the lights on.
Fog machines and bands and loud instruments. And you have a good point.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But, like what I was trying to tell you the other day when we were talking is Christianity gets sidetracked on 25 other topics except for the basics of it. The Catholics want you to talk about the sacraments and the priests and the dipping in the holy water and can you be baptized as an infant or can you not? But I don't ever hear them on there talking about, do you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and say it out loud with your mouth and you will be saved? They don't want to talk about that. I'm not saying that they don't ever, but it's not the central point of whatever, the Mormons. I talk to a lot of them, and there's nothing wrong with those folks in a lot of ways, but they want you to do things. They want you to go, well, you got to go to Salt Lake City, you got to do this. There's a lot of things that you have to do in order that are part of Christianity. And that's what I was trying to tell you the other day is, I think it's John chapter 6, and it's, Master, what do we have to do so that we can do the works of God? And he said the work of God is this, to believe on him whom the Lord sent. That's the work of God. You don't have to do anything. And
no.
Anybody who says, well, what about predestination and what about this and what about that? And I know I went round and round with a lot of people in Shepherdsfield about all the different things that they had attached to. And I went, yeah, but let's just bring it back here.
And those that don't know Shepherdsfield, it's a Christian cult in mid-Missouri. It's a Christian cult that committed 3 suicides, made 2 people hung themselves. One person put weights on his legs and drowned himself in a pool. The FBI investigated it. They were into child molestation. It was the most demonic place that exists in the world. There were demons present. There were demons freely flowing around, tormenting people. It was absolutely ludicrous. I ran away. I was just telling Brian before we started the show, I ran away at 17 years old. I was told if I ran away from the community, I would be locked up in chains and I would be put in prison for the rest of my life. And prison means they will lock you up, put you in a shed in the back of this land, and just bury you alive. His name is John Welker. He ran it, and when you said Shepherdsfield, you can't just lightly graze that word and not have something come off my tongue, Brian.
Well,
it's not gonna happen. That place was hell.
I'm sure it was. But also, there was a lot of good that came out of that, and I'm not trying to sell people on. I'm saying everybody that came out.
What good came out of that? What good came out of that?
I'll tell you what good came out of it. All your brothers, your dad, all these people left that, and
survivors of a war are good. So after the Civil War, World War II, people come back on boats, so they're good.
I know, but there still was a lot of good that came out of that. A lot of people came out of that.
Good out of what?
Some of the most successful
that the
people
life that
I've
you
seen
survived?
Okay.
3 out of 100 people committed suicide. 28 out of those were molested. 28 children were molested.
That's probably
from that
not
place.
above the national average. But what I'm saying,
oh God,
what I'm saying is,
telling you that place. Why isn't the federal government knocking down the doors and breaking into that place?
Because it's like that everywhere. That's what I'm saying. It's probably not above the national.
Cult
I know
there.
that everything, but it all comes back down to this. That is a classic example of, like we were talking, what's the mission of what we're trying to do here?
We're trying to define that you need Jesus. We need Jesus. We're in a podcast. We're in the podcast business.
We have to believe in our heart and confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord, and then we don't have to do nothing after that. That's it. It's done.
Yes.
What they did was they took, let's go to Acts. All the disciples lived out of one purse. We're going to make a whole community based on this one scripture. You can't
Which they opened every member 11 credit card accounts on every member that was there. Every member of the community called Shepherdsfield Community Christian Church, the 100 members, they opened 11 credit cards and drained all of their accounts. Rick, who was on the podcast, left with a car with 220,000 miles on it and $100 in his pocket and kicked out the road with 4 kids.
Once again, same thing will happen to any organization, church, religion that takes one scripture and goes, this is now our new goal in life. We're going to live out of one purse. We're all going to follow a certain set of these other rules that are in here. And the main point doesn't come back to you have to believe in your heart, like the blood and the Lord Jesus Christ.
I agree with you, but why does that place, because it was a Christian organization, get sheltered? Why does it get? Why does the FBI and federal government not care that there was so much federal crime done at this place, and why aren't they having detectives go there and take Tom Mahaney and put him in prison? Why don't they care about that?
Hey, man.
They'll do Jeffrey Epstein. They'll take Epstein. They'll go after Epstein because he's a celebrity. Jeffrey Epstein, Trump's this person's associated. But you can have a child molester over in a Christian community, and that's okay.
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? You know this place.
I don't know what you're saying here.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm not saying that you're not saying. I'm just saying I'm unaware. I don't want to.
You know of this community, right?
I do know of this.
You've spoken to people in this community that have said it is some really bad stuff came from it. Can you say that?
I mean, I can say most everybody left. And what I'm saying is everybody has their own individual story of something bad that happened to them as a child. Mostly the children are that way. And bad things happen when you're a child. But like when I said it's probably not above the national average. It's like, even if you weren't in that, all that stuff that you're talking about, it happens to everybody out here in the general public every day. It's not like, okay, we're going to build this block of people and the bad things that happen are now not going to touch this place because we've built utopia. It's never going to happen. And that's why it's like you didn't have an uncommon childhood. It's very common, and to be honest with you, it's probably a lot worse for people that weren't in that little bubble that you were in. It was just bad to you because you were sitting there. And
seeing it all.
Yeah, and so if y'all had never entered in that community, it would have been the exact same thing in a different form or format would have happened to you outside of it. So it wasn't like it was uncommonly bad.
How do 100 hippies come together from Southern California? 100 hippies, Christian hippies, in Bird Rock. You can still go to Bird Rock Church in San Diego. Get in a bus, drive and buy a sheep farm in mid-Missouri, and live in barns and raise a catastrophic church where they manipulated, where you weren't even allowed to leave the land, where they all wore rings that said they wouldn't even leave. They literally lived the Acts Apostles. They thought that was what God led them to do.
Yeah, but they didn't. They didn't live the Acts Apostles.
That's true.
They tried to reenact it. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't go,
almost like a movie or something, like a live movie.
You can't go take the Bible and take these. We're going to base our whole ministry on these 3 scriptures. If it ain't what I just told you, then it will end up in turmoil eventually because you're trying to live by us. Like, we're going to have the Eucharist, and we're going to have the clergy, and we're going to pray to Mary, and we're going to do all these different things, and this is what we're going to base everything on. Well, how come you're not talking about this original point?
That's a good point. So out of this cult, when you look at this
the
cult,
exact same thing
how
happened.
do you feel? How do you feel inside of your heart when you hear people that come from this cult, no matter if they're successful or not successful? How do you feel? Do you feel good?
Well, I'll say what I said before is that
because I think people are searching for authentic content.
it's just not uncommon.
Okay, so
you're
saying there's other churches that you think are.
I'm saying it
masking
happens
the same
everywhere
thing?
to everybody. Some guy down the street did
Joel
something
Osteen.
wrong
You
to
think
me.
Joel Osteen
Yeah.
could be
I'm sure he's
operating?
got massive problems.
Okay.
You know, everybody in everywhere has massive problems. And it's not uncommon. And, you know, you're developing this thing about mental health. And
Well, give me an example. What's something mentally unhealthy that you've been around? I'm sure in this cult that I grew up in, but what's something that you've personally been around that's been very hard for you mentally, to where you're trying to gain your mental health around?
I mean, I'll say this. I know a man that I know very well. I lived with this person, and this person is as good of a person as you're gonna find. And he did stick to the Bible and everything, and he had something go wrong in his head, and he did develop schizophrenia. And I lived with this person. This person read the Bible every day, almost all day. And it wasn't anything that he did. He wasn't doing drugs. He wasn't drinking alcohol. He wasn't abusing anything. He just had a sort of like mental break in his brain, and it's affected him his whole life. And, you know, I'm not going to call his name because, you know, like I said, I was trying to tell you the reason why people don't want to talk. You said, why do people not want to talk about mental health? I was like, well, they want to get employed.
That's
you know,
a good point.
it's like
That's a good
I'm
point.
not going to come out and tell everybody I don't need to tell you everything about me for you to decide if you want to hire me or not.
No, but I'm saying,
know?
like, I feel like most people, and like I talked to this one lady, like, you know, obviously as a dental hygienist and you're cleaning teeth and you're talking to people in their personal lives all day long, you realize that so many people bottle up these mental health stuff. And like, I feel like they're searching for content and they're listening to content. Like 568 million people are listening to podcasts. Joe Rogan is speaking. They're good interviews. They're funny. I listen to a lot of the funny ones. But I'm like, I've got to change this industry to where there is content that actually makes someone feel the way that makes a difference in their life. Like, like you boiled it down. I like how you boiled it down into a nutshell. And that was, acknowledge that you are a sinner and that the Lord Jesus Christ came to save you because you are a wretched soul and in need of a Savior. And by the blood of Jesus Christ, you are saved.
There you go. And you don't have to do anything. That's it. You're done. You did it. And people don't want to hear that. They want to complicate it, and they want to make it very complicated. And if it was any more complicated than that, I wouldn't have made it.
2025.
Because I'm not doing all the little ceremonies, and I'm not flying to anywhere, and I'm just not gonna do it.
No, I know. I understand, and I appreciate that. That is something I really appreciate you about, Ryan. I really do. Because I genuinely, since the first day I met you, I knew you're not an over-complex person. Right. And that's what I love about TRC. It's just like you said. Well, you said, like, you like to get in and you like to get out.
Yeah.
And you like to get it done and be efficient. And in the same way, with your religion, you're taking that same concept and you're doing it, but you're doing it like a surgical way, and I love it. You are a wretched sinner, and you are in need of a Savior to save you. Here's the solution, acknowledge it, and then let's be on with it.
Well, you talked about the voices that are out there in these podcasts and stuff, and even in my own son, he listens to this guy named Alex O'Connor.
I like Alex O'Connor.
Okay, but then you know that he's very much of a challenger to and he's very argumentative. But he does, I said, well, he's just doing it with a British.
He's brilliant.
No, he has a British accent. He's not that smart.
He
sounds smart. I probably sound stupid on this podcast because I have a country accent. And that is a disadvantage when you're trying to have theological and stuff. I've had people say, well, what gives you the qualifications to be able to say what you're saying?
You're a human being.
Well, I read the Bible. I know what it says. Like, it's not like I didn't get it because I'm a scholar.
Right.
But, he comes at it from a very, we're going to break this down and show you how, people want to take the Bible and go, well, they talked about slavery back here. So now it's, what kind of a God would let people have slaves? And what, so, and we're talking about controversial topics like, well, he told him to go in there and kill all those people. And,
but that's the point. I love that.
But everybody wants
controversy.
To go back.
Nobody wants to be controversial.
They want to go back and find all this controversial stuff and then say, well, it contradicts itself. Well, it discredits itself.
Maybe it does.
Well, maybe it does. I don't particularly think it really does. I think that,
nobody wants to go back to Shepherdsfield and be controversial.
My kid really had a problem that the Bible in the Old Testament had rules and conduct for how to treat a slave, and that it was okay to have slaves. And the point that I was making to him was that, like, slavery back then, sometimes your life would have been what you can't comprehend because we've had it so good in the United States. I mean, there's a war going on right now, and we're doing a podcast. I mean, this is how good we have it.
Well, no.
What I'm trying to say is, when you're back here talking about the slavery topic, I said, you can't imagine coming from a world where if you were tossed out there and you were free, you were worse off than being a slave for this person. Your life actually improved.
But I just watched 42 with Jackie Robinson, and he was the first black successful baseball player. And so you are right. There were people that came in and grabbed him, got a hold of him, and put him through the ranks to become a historical, incredible talent in Major League Baseball. Yes. So his life was improved because he was given the opportunity.
Well, I mean, that's kind of not what I was saying. What I was saying is if you threw somebody out in the street back in the biblical days, they wouldn't. It was like they were going to die. So it's like, well, I'd rather just even a lot of Jews came in and said, "I'll just submit and be your slave, and then things will be better for me."
I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. They could live in the palace, they could drink the water, the food, they were actually well taken care of.
But the point of all of what I'm trying to say is you have a lot of voices out here that are coming up against Christianity because they're going back and they're bringing up all these atrocities that have happened over the years. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to say it on here. Slavery was bad, there's no doubt. But because of Christianity, the United States did have slavery, but they also were the country that ended it. And this is the part that they don't get a lot of credit for. And, they were the ones that said, we're not going to do that anymore. And this was a radical concept to the whole world.
And the Democratic Party started slavery. They initiated slavery.
I don't know about all that.
Well, I do. I just know that the Democratic Party started slavery. I mean, I studied it. I was a history major.
Both of those parties, they wishy-wash back and forth. You can't take a party of people and say, well, these people are always like that and they'll always be like that. Tomorrow they're going to switch. They're politicians. They have to change what they say because the world changes around them. They can't just sit here and go, well, I'm going to be like this forever. If they did, we'd still have slavery. They all change.
Bernie Sanders admitted to that on Joe Rogan's podcast that with BlackRock and 3 major financial firms owning 95% of the wealth, that these guys will switch on whatever side they need to make sure that it's good for them, regardless of what party, to make sure it's with them. And so Joe Rogan asked a good question, regarding that. But I really, really appreciate Brian Brian light to that, because I think that with, the busyness of today and all the stuff that's going on, there's so much importance of creating good content. And I really appreciate you. Before you even came on the podcast, you did not want to bring just a bunch of crap on. You didn't want to talk about crap because you're like, what is important? But I'm just saying, like, people want to listen to something and be guided and helped and encouraged. And sometimes comedy kind of helps, release and relax you for the day, so that's cool. I like that.
I'm really slacking in my comedy right here because we're talking about so much death. But, and kind of going back to that, a lot of things that people don't want to talk about God that really drives them nuts. And this is what a lot of people go, well, why did this happen to this person? They pick one person that they think was a great person or a good person or a nice person. They go, because God didn't do something for this person, well, now I'm just kind of done with them. And I think, it's a very hard concept for even us today to think about, but God, He will kill 10 good men to save one sorry one.
That's true.
And this is a concept that is just not natural.
I mean, Samson was born to kill Philistines.
It's like he will let 10 good men die so that one sorry one can be saved.
It's incredible.
I mean, this is hard concept to understand.
So for listeners, they go to 11:22, they get the lights, they get the smooth intro, they get the guy that comes out. Joe's about to come out. I'm going to give you a nice intro. Joe comes, rolling out, in his nice tight jeans and nice pressed shirt, country shirt, everybody, welcome to 11:22, and he just gets back from Africa killing a lion, and the congregation just paid for. And, then he's, all the lights and fog are coming out, and everyone thinks, oh my God, this guy's anointed. He's from the Holy Spirit, when really he's so intoxicated from the amount of whiskey he drank the night before. His face is so red that he doesn't even know what he's saying.
Well, look, I don't know the man. I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, this is what I was telling you.
So how do we help?
I don't
people?
I'm
just saying. Okay. So don't get involved in that. But I'm just saying, what can we bring into the podcast industry? There's wars, like you said, going on. We got a war in Ukraine. We got a war in Iran. We got a war over in Argentina. How do we help people, guide them to good content? What would you encourage listeners to do? I'm just trying with this podcast just to open and let things breathe out.
I mean, I like the PBD podcast because I feel like he tries to give a fair breakdown of what's going on in the world.
That was a damn good answer. He gives a lot of different perspectives on it, and they argue it out, and he gives the percentages, and he tries to stick to the facts. He's really good for this particular moment because he is Iranian. Can you give me an example of something he said that just kind of pulled it together for you?
No, I can't. I don't know one particular example like that. I'm just trying to think of.
I know I do.
No, I really can't think of one thing. You should have told me to have that with me when I brought it in here.
No. I'm like that too. And someone asked me about one podcast, Joe Rogan. I'm like, does he do podcasts? I black out all the time. I'm just because I'm trying. There's so much information out there, and some of it's funny, some of it's this, some of it's that. But I'm trying to make people, because I know life is difficult and has difficult moments in it. And yes, like I'm going to see Theo Vaughn next Friday. He comes to Florida Theater here. I have tickets. I'm going to see him. Okay, it's going to be funny. It's going to be a good time, right? I like to laugh. I saw Adam Sandler when he came here to the ViStar Arena in Jacksonville. But I'm trying to make people that have mental health, really difficult moments, like people that came out of that cult Shepherdsfield, everyone bottles it up. Nobody wants to talk about it, and they just say, hey, a lot of good came out of it. And then they leave it at that.
Well, because what are you going to do? You can't right the wrongs of yesterday. You cannot do that. And there was a lot of good that came out of it. All your brothers, in their own way, have turned out great. It's not like they raised a bunch of...
They don't even talk to each other.
Well, we'll get there. But what I'm saying, two of them don't. But
my oldest brother,
everybody,
and my next brother don't even talk to each other.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Maybe if you have a disagreement with somebody, there's nothing wrong with that. You got to have disagreements in life. But he'll get there. They'll get there. You were talking about 1122, which I can't discuss on that because I ain't never been there. I don't know anything about the guy. But in the same manner of things, going back to what we talked about the central point of Christianity is to believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord. And then when you stray away from that, and then you start trying to make these alternative goals, well, we're going to do that, plus we're going to add these 5 other things that we want to be about. And we went to the Vineyard, and that's kind of what happened there. Is we started to get sidetracked, and I say we because we were all responsible for it. I'm not blaming any necessarily one person. I'm just saying there were competing interests for the role of the main goal. And it was like, well, let's be about that. But let's also be about these 3 other. Let's go back in here to Psalms and read about where it tells us to be still. We're going to be about that. We're going to make the whole congregation, we're going to make everything it's about being still. No, it's not. It's not about that. And you can go over here and say, the Church of God that talks about like, women have to dress a certain way and people have to dress a certain way. Well, we're going to make this whole church be about that. And if you don't want to wear a dress down to past your knees, and you don't want to do these certain things, well, then you're not really following the Bible.
Kind of like the Amish.
And so then you go over to like some of the evangelical. Well, if you're not tongue talking and you're not doing this and you're not casting out demons, then you really ain't in the real deal.
That's true.
And
that's a good
people
point. Yeah.
People
That's
build central points that are alternative to the blood.
That's very true.
And then
like you said, it is boring, and so 1122 is trying to make it for Gen Z and the millennial generation a more exciting atmosphere to where they will want to come. Because like you said, it is boring,
you run out
right?
of things to talk about. What are we going to do? Come in here every week and talk about believing in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord?
Right.
Is that what we're going to talk about every Sunday?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because this is boring. And, we need to raise some money here. And then the church becomes this organization that can't survive off of just the simple truth of the gospel. It has to have...
So do you agree it's a
millions
business?
of
Do you think the church is a
alternative
business?
voices. Huh?
Do you think 1122 is a business?
Well, I mean, come on. Every church is a business when you get down to it.
Do you think
it
that...
has a board of directors.
Yes. So
it's a 501c3 and people are donating money to it. It's a business.
Do you think that business, because there are some people I talk to about Joe B. Martin here in 1122, and they will turn their back against me. I will give you one example, and I'll leave it at this. This guy was Joe B. Martin's #1 investor. And he funded him before when he was at Baptist Methodist, right? Baptist. He was over here at a local church, right?
Yeah.
Before he formed 1122. He helped fund him. And then he sat where he used to sit in the front, and it became so overloaded that he became a non-existent investor or helper to fund this next 1122 church they wanted to form. And then he became to a point where he wrote him and he didn't even know who he was. So where do you...
But you keep looking for these people, like...
Well, because I came from an environment like
I know,
that.
but this
How
guy,
can I not?
The 1122 has done an excellent job. They've done a great job.
Okay.
The people that are involved in it are about like how me and you are. They're not perfect.
Okay.
They're greedy. They're self-righteous.
He just comes across arrogant. He just
when I say that, I'm not saying that about him. I'm talking about me. I'm saying we are all fallen short of the glory of God, and people are imperfect.
Well, I stayed in line to meet him, and he said, "Hurry up, I've got other people to see." How does that make you feel when a pastor says,
Well, who cares?
"Hey, Brian, hurry up, I got other people to see"?
Who cares how you feel?
Because a pastor shouldn't make you... Did God ever say to someone like, "Oh, get out of my way, I got another person to minister to"?
Somewhere down the line, everybody started worrying about how people feel. And as much as you know, Andrew Tate, he's all on the internet. You probably know who he is.
Yes.
One thing that he did say, and I just listened to him because it is kind of funny. He said, feelings are for women and children.
Yeah,
and then he turned around and said it's the goal of men to make money. But like, I'm not necessarily 100% subscribed to that. But what I'm saying is everybody is so concerned with everybody's feelings, and that's where, like, you know, I was telling you, I put this book, and I'm trying to put together a book, and really, it's not a book to be sold. That's like. That I think is going to be a bestseller. I'm really writing this book as a sort of like memoir to my kids so that they can read it, and it basically breaks down what we're talking about here. Don't get distracted by all these other little concepts in the Bible, and don't let people steer you towards like, all right, we need to start talking about the end times.
Maybe I'm just over skeptical.
This
of
is
it.
the
Coming
war
from
that's
like Cole, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm over like skeptical, thinking
because you're
like,
coming out of that background
yes.
that went and isolated one concept and then tried to make a whole religion out
That's
of
true.
it.
That's
And
true.
so,
that's not everyone's being.
but if you steer anything away from that central truth, you will have these same results. Then you will end up in a situation where I don't feel like the pastor's treating me correctly when I get in there. Well, he don't got time for you.
Sure. Yeah. He didn't get
Like, don't take it as a personal insult.
No.
Jody Martin is busy.
Oh God, yeah.
He's got
Get out of his
a
way.
lot to do.
I'm going to pull over to the side of the road so he can zoom by with his truck. Please.
You know,
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
and you know, Donald Trump doesn't have time to sit down and listen to our grievances.
No, listen. Next time the light is red, I will try to do whatever I can, turn it green, so he can speed up, get to where he needs to go.
He needs to get there.
Yeah, he does. I understand what you're saying. I'm gonna try to like get him where he needs to go. Yeah, he's someone else more important to talk to.
I mean,
you know that the average person sitting in the church, those people. Listen, those aren't the people keeping the lights on, or they really are. That's why I'm saying every person does matter in there.
20% of them are.
Yeah. And that's why every person does matter. And that's why I think as a pastor, you need to be responsible to go after, like Christ did, the lost sheep and the sheep that's maybe making it all happen. Maybe there isn't. I mean, it got to a point where Jesus had to hand up fish and loaves from baskets because there was no food and there was so many people. So you have a good point there. He is busy. We'll cut him some slack. Okay. So back to the meaning of this, why we're here today, is because podcasting has become a big thing. It's all out there. It's very, very, very much, become, since 2009. Joe Rogan has done 2,400 podcasts. That's a lot of information. 2,400 podcasts. Do you have time to listen to that? No. Not even with your commute from the beaches to TRC. You don't have time to even get through his.
No.
So people are like, where is content that's going to help me get through the shit that I'm going through the day?
Yeah.
You know what? Where's a podcast that's going to help lift me up so I can get through the struggles I'm trying to do? And I don't feel like any one of these podcasts on this list do it. Not even Shay Jetty. People like Shay Jetty, because of his voice? They said on a rating that because of his voice on the microphone, the way that he talks, that it's soothing and therapeutic. So what is your point for me being here, in any way, at any time, like how can we make a dent in a difference in the podcasting field to where you feel like it's really feeding you? You gave an example with your son, and that really was almost bullseye, I would say, is a good example. Yeah, that really was good. I like that, because that was a clean example, but how could the podcasting industry clean up a little bit so it's delivering a message for people that really strikes to where they, in mental health, I'm talking mental health, not comedy, not historical, I'm leaving all the other guys out, but I'm saying in terms of mental health in the health aspect, where do you feel like it's lacking?
Well, I certainly hope you didn't bring me in here to solve the podcasting world, because I know nothing about it.
You listen to a lot of podcasts.
I do listen to them, but what I'm saying...
you're an expert at it.
No, I'm not an expert.
You're an expert listener.
I'm a consumer.
Consumer. Well, that makes you an expert.
Well, if I don't like something, I just delete it.
That's my point.
So, I mean, I guess whoever doesn't get deleted has figured it out. If nobody listens to this podcast and...
it's trash.
Well, I mean...
We've wasted our time. We've sat here for an hour and a half.
Has spoken. And another thing, people don't want to listen to something so that they can be fixed.
Nope.
They want to listen to something so they can be entertained.
Yes.
And if it's not entertaining, they're going to delete it.
Yep. It's because they're looking to laugh or feel a certain way. So if it doesn't check that box off, they go to a different. Well, crime and killing people and crime is becoming the #1 podcast. You know that? Where people watch and listen to people being murdered. These crime series are becoming the #1. Is that good for your mental health to listen all day long about how someone gets murdered? Why are people getting off on that? Why is that?
People like to watch cops.
Okay,
people like tragedy.
Okay, they like
tragedy. You're talking about mental health.
We're in tragedy though right now.
Mental health is boring. I'm just telling you. This is a topic that people are going to listen to. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I think it's a great idea. Really, you're not really doing everything here about mental health. But technically, if I was flipping through podcasts, I'm not going to listen to something about mental health. I'm sorry. It's I want to see how'd Steve-O get started in Jackass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the mindset of people, and and that's why I like my son. He, like I said, he wants to listen to Alex O'Connor, which I find him to be. He's British. He sounds smarter than me. But I just want to let him
sound smarter than you. What does that mean?
Well, he does. And like you said, it goes off your voice. I mean, you have to be entertaining to get people's attention in today's world. And I'm not very entertaining as far as I wouldn't want to sit here and do this every day. It would be just
Well, who's the guy on Jackass that Theo?
Johnny Knoxville.
No, the other guy that has a that. Post Malone tattooed a dick on his arm.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I don't know.
That's very entertaining to people. So maybe what I need to do to be better entertaining is I'm just going to have dicks tattooed all over my arms. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start talking about dicks. And I think that, you know what? I probably should have named this dicks. Because then people will be like, oh man, this is good. This is we're talking about now. Now I can really have a fun conversation, Maybe as a little, maybe as a big,
I don't know. This is not me. I didn't do it.
So I'm saying that is funny though. Because he did have it tattooed and Joe Rogan said he was he couldn't even talk.
But this is entertainment.
Yeah.
This is not serious. This is entertainment.
Well, it's just funny that Joe Rogan couldn't concentrate because He's
I mean, if you're trying to turn this into a lesson, then, it needs to be a more stricter format. This is just, we're just chit-chatting here.
Yeah, we're friends, we go way back probably 15, 20 years.
So what
this boils down to is that we're trying to bring attention to two things. One is that for mental health, you cannot have good mental health without God. Number one. And I feel like that's where it all comes to.
Once again, going back to what I was telling you about the guy who is a Christian, who read his Bible every day and didn't have good mental health.
Well, we had a PhD from Harvard come in, doctor, and discuss the difference between mental health and mental illness. And that's very important to understand. And that's very important to understand.
He had a mental illness.
Yes.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is, we don't want to get on here and tell people like, if you become a born again Christian, then you're not going to have bad mental problems. And I don't want to say that either, because you could have the worst you ever had.
No, but I think like in my head, what I'm thinking of is what's so fascinating to have you on is you take such a mundane thing of what someone would think of as of taking and recycling trash. You commute an hour to work and back, and you're recycling metal. You're recycling something that you said can be boring. And you are making something so much more than that. You're providing something in a way where your belief system and the character that your dad has imposed upon you is something that you can come here and you can provide from this journey that you take back and forth. You can give someone like me very, very critical advice on what something can bring value and where something can't.
Well, I'm glad you think of that highly of me.
I do.
It's I think this podcast, I think you got a great logo. I think you got a good concept. I think you got a good idea. It can be entertaining, but it has to be entertaining. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be on this list, these people are on this list because they're entertaining. It's not because they're providing a massive public service to people. What they're doing is not very important. It's not important. It is just two people talking about ideas, and people find it entertaining. And if you try to put more importance on it than that, then you're going to find yourself frustrated, because you're going to say, why don't people want to listen to something that I want to say about mental health, because it's important to them? They don't care.
Well, it depends what category you fall on. You could be in business. Someone might find business entertaining, relationships, they're going through a divorce, celebrities, science. They want to know how Elon Musk can take a rocket to space, history, how is a gun developed, how is it made, for women. For religion, sports, education, politics, self-help, true crime, technology, comedy. So it depends on what someone finds is entertaining. And that's why there's such a variety of podcasts. Why I love podcasting is because there's such a variety of it, to where you can literally find out what category makes you tilt and turn. But I just found out that there is not, no matter what you do to entertain someone, after the entertainment, you're still back to yourself, of who you are. Wherever you go, there you are. So no matter how entertaining something was, whether this podcast made you laugh your ass off or it just was the stupidest shit you ever heard, you're still in that space where you are where you are. Here's that quiet moment. When the movie's done in the theater, you still gotta walk out, and there's life.
And when we walk out of here, we're going to face it.
We are.
Someone will see this.
We are. And you know what? I'm just telling you, like, and back to the respect of someone like Joe Rogan is an American comedian, podcast host, UFC commentator, and former TV host who has become one of the most influential voices in modern podcasting.
Well,
and
we keep talking about Joe Rogan.
Because he's kind of an idol.
Well, let me say this. Joe Rogan is in a class of people that is, he's not a podcaster. He's not.
Bingo.
He's in a different different class of human beings.
Then why did they label him like that? Like, I mean, the podcast era, they call him the podcast era since 2009, where guests have included people like Elon Musk, Neil, Tyson. It's become one of the most popular podcasts in the world.
The smartest people on the planet, and then we're talking about them like they're just somebody that we met yesterday. These people are like elites.
His parents divorced when he was 5.
Yeah.
He later moved with his mother all over the place, from San Francisco to even Gainesville here in Florida. As a teenager, he became very interested in martial arts, especially Taekwondo, and won several championships. In 1994, he moved to Los Angeles and began acting on TV shows because he was amazed at, can I have a conversation with someone and someone's going to pay me for that? You know what I mean? So he is now on episode, what did we say?
I got a feeling that that's kind of like what you're doing here.
Doing what?
That you found out that you can get on here and talk, and it's kind of business.
Not at all.
Well, I mean, you should think that way. That's what he did.
I know, like, but he's making money. He made a deal with Spotify for like $20 million. This right here is a service for the public. I want the public to realize that
this is not PBS.
It's not PBS, but I'm telling you this, like martial arts, stand-up comedian, TV actor, host of the Fear Factor, UFC commentator, creator of one of the world's biggest podcasts. Yes, that's Joe Rogan. But you, Brian, with the recycling centers, is just as important as Joe Rogan. That's my point. Is you as an individual, no matter how great of a guest Joe Rogan had on, Elon Musk, Bernie Sanders, you as an individual to God is just as important as someone else. And Angels and Demons podcast wants you to know that you are not alone. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you need for entertainment, that it boils down to a nutshell. And give it to me one last time. What does it boil down to for you in your relationship with God?
You have to believe in your heart, confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord out loud. You can't just say, I believe. People say, I believe. No, that's not good enough. You have to do it out loud. And, my dad would whip me if I didn't say it. You have to be unashamed. You have to do it in front of people. You cannot be ashamed about it. You have to say, I believe in the heart, confess with the mouth that Jesus is Lord, and then you will be saved. Anything that you try to make the goal outside of that, like I said, that book that I'm writing for my kids is titled, We're Not All God's Children. Because people walk around and they say, well, we're all God's children. We're all created by God. I'm like, no, you're not created by God. You're created by your daddy. He's the one who done that.
Amen.
And, your physical body and everything is created through your parents. Like, God didn't have this big, your parents did that. And that's why, God is wanting everybody. He wants everybody on his team. And he is going to draw everybody to his team. And when you accept that, then all these other things that you want to look into the Bible and read about in the Bible, then you can sort of make sense of it in some form or fashion. But you can never erect one of those things and go, this is the new flagship idea that we're going to base our podcast or our ministry or our church or our thing on. We found this one verse and we're going to base everything off of that. Well, is it back here where it says believe in your heart? If it ain't that, then you better watch out, because you may end up in a Shepherdsfield that said all Christians are supposed to live out of one person in one community. And then you may end up erecting a whole religion based off of just one concept. And it's not the most important. You have got to keep the main thing the main thing.
Amen. And that is what Angels and Demons podcast is about. Is the main point of what Brian just said is the most important thing. Everything else can come, but that has to be the center. Because if the compass is not pointed in the right direction, in that direction, if that is not the core, the nucleus of what you wake up and understand, everything else makes no difference.
Right.
And so that has been Angels and Demons podcast, and Brian Linton, to share that and come on here. Come on, man. That was cool shit. And thank you so much. And until next time, be safe.
Angels and demons fighting in the deep end. I turn all my weakness into something I believe in. Every scar, every doubt, that's fuel when I speak. Welcome to the battle where the broken get free. Yeah.